So let me tell you about the most amazing glitch in the pre-patch for the War Within. Armor in PvP is ridiculously broken, and for once there is no possibility of Blizzard fixing it. You see, it is pre-patch and the game has level 80 scaling, the new max level in the War Within for level 70 characters, which is the current max level until the War Within actually launches. So nothing makes any sense. In particular, armor is off the charts, with some reporting 75% physical damage reduction even before you get into other forms of damage mitigation. Now, there are a number of ways to take advantage of this situation, but the method I chose was to build a tank as indestructible as a battleship. I created one of the most powerful, one of the mightiest, one of the most gargantuan gnomes ever to endlessly troll the enemy. So this character, Mortalicia, has full best in slot gear, and every single talent is optimized for damage mitigation. Because it is only physical damage that is ineffectual against armor, I've especially focused on reducing magical damage, as this is still relatively dangerous in pre-patch. You can cut and paste my talent build with the string I put in the description below if you want to try this. Mortalicia has 61% armor reduction, rising to 71% with at least one bone shield, which Blood Death Knights almost always have up in combat. You can take it much higher than that, but as we'll see, it's a better idea to prioritize magical damage reduction. She also gets 25% damage reduction from versatility. As you can see, my Death Knight is very hard to kill. In fact, almost impossible to kill in any kind of confined space. Even in normal circumstances, Death Knights are quite hard to kill when they can repeatedly use Death Strike. But with this build, even when you get players competent enough to chain stuns together and burst the Death Knight down, it still takes a while to actually kill the Death Knight. I'm taking every talent which enhances anti-magic shell, and my weapon is enchanted with Rune of Spell Warding. Normally this is a specialist option for when you know in advance you'll be taking a lot of magic damage, but because of the enhanced armor scaling you want to focus everything on magical damage. This build is truly game breaking. I've often been able to solo as many as 20 players or even more for significant periods. Now, what can you actually do with this? It is pretty easy to win any kind of rated battleground with a tank, provided you can get other players to waste all their time attacking you when they could be completing game objectives elsewhere. If you can capture or defend a flag or other game objective, that's so much the better. But all you really need to do to win is waste the time of multiple enemy players. This build is enormous fun in epic battlegrounds, most of which are decided very early. For example, here in Alterac Valley, just running straight into the enemy team and stunning and slowing them is enough to ensure your team will win the Zerg to the towers and the boss. In Wintergrasp, much the same is true. If you can reach the enemy team and slow them down, your allies will have a very easy job demolishing the reduced force that reaches them at Sunken in the first battle. Finally, in Ashran, you can just power through the enemy or even solo the boss, as I'm showing here. In Isle of Conquest, the meta strategy is to take the hangar first, and the team that does so wins 90% of the time. If you can tie up the enemy before they reach the flag, it's basically game over. The gravitational displacer item is incredibly useful here. Now, I imagine this video will get a lot of hate, because when you're on the other side of this equation and you want to stop the Death Knight, it can be very frustrating. If you know how though, it's not actually that hard, but you do need to know how to do it. Here's a good example which is typical. A Death Knight is trying to solo our mage here in Ashran, the mini-boss, and I get in the way. Now, what a lot of people do is stand in front of the Death Knight or other tank, and that allows the tank to heal themselves to full. While I stand here, the other DK might as well be invincible. The trick is to remove yourself from the DK's range so they can't use Death Strike, and stun and slow them until they've exhausted their cooldowns whilst using range attacks. Remember, separate the DK from their target and they die pretty quick. Other tanking class mechanics are a little more complicated, but the same truth basically holds. If they can't hit anything, they can't heal themselves. You'll find that a lot of the tanking strategies I've mentioned in this video actually work very well when the War Within launches, even though there'll be no armor scaling bug then. There's also quite a few secret buffs and debuffs that can be taken with you into different forms of player versus player combat and allow you to do even more damage and make you even more indestructible. If I made those public, they'd get fixed fast, but if you're really interested in turning your character into a PvP beast, you might want to consider joining my Patreon, where secrets too hot for YouTube get published on a regular basis.